Hi, my name is Hannah Unrein, and today I will be presenting to you about the different disabilities and disorders that I learned about this semester and how I would go about teaching the student differently with that disability or disorder. First of all, I'd like to say that no matter if the student has a disability or not, I would want to have a safe, accepting, comfortable environment for that student, or my students in general, I guess. And so that's a main point for me with teaching any student with a disability or without. Also, since I want to be a preschool teacher, routine would be a big thing for me, having a routine for students throughout the day to follow. My first disability that I learned about was a learning disability, and this could be explained by a reading disability such as dyslexia, memory problems remembering things, and social and emotional needs. How I would teach the student differently is I would break down my information as I am teaching them, have them verbalize what they learn sometimes, so have them try to not teach it back to me, but tell me like what I taught them and what they learned, and having information for them ready and visual information, graphic organizers, just kind of whatever they need to accommodate how they need to learn. The second one that I learned about this semester is a communication disorder, and I just named some of the symptoms about this communication disorder because I think those are important. I put the difficulty following directions, attending to conversation, pronouncing words, perceiving what was said, expressing themselves, and they might have a difficulty being understood because of a stutter or a hoarse voice that they may have. How I would teach differently is I would give instructions slower and make sure they understand. I would practice and maintain easy and effective communication skills, and I would make sure all students are participating in discussion, especially the ones with a communication disorder. Emotional disorder and behavior disorder. I found a lot of the characteristics to kind of be the same, and like with these two disorders. I know that they're not the same, and I do know the differences and things, but the characteristics that I put down are conduct, attention problems, socializing aggression, psychotic behavior, and anxiety or withdrawal. They may have an inability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors, an inability to build or maintain relationships with peers or a teacher, inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. They may have a general mood of unhappiness or depression, and they may have the tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. How I would teach these students differently is I would make sure that rules are set, not only for the whole class, but specifically for the individual with the disorder. I'd make sure I'm rewarding their good behavior. I'm allowing breaks if they need it, and make sure I'm using motivational strategies for them. The next disorder is the attention deficient hyperactivity disorder, which is also known as ADHD. They may have the inability to control impulses, hyperactivity, which would be maybe fidgeting, squirming, or unable to sit still. It would kind of vary from student to student and just how they are personally. Impulsivity, intruding other kids' activities, acting before thinking and just blurting things out. And then inattention, like daydreams, distraction, doesn't listen, just forgets things that you tell them. And how I would teach differently is I would definitely make accommodations for these students. The seating, I think, is a big one, so don't sit them near a window where they'll stare out the window. forever. Maybe not sit two kids with ADHD by each other because of their hyperactivity, and they may bounce off each other. Also organization for them with teaching them and in the classroom in general. I'd make sure instructions are clear and repeat for them if necessary, so that way I make sure that they understood it. If possible, I'd work on the most difficult material early in the day. That way they haven't been sitting all day already and they're not ready to move so much. And I would use visuals for these students. The next one is intellectual disability. And this is referred to as mental retardation. Students demonstrate delays in cognitive, social, and adaptive behavior skills, and they struggle conceptually, socially, and practically. Conceptually, this would include problems with the skill in language, reading, writing, mathematics, reasoning, memory, and knowledge retention. So kind of they would struggle in things that other students may be able to do normally. Social, this refers to issues with empathy, judgment, communication, making and keeping friends, and other social functions. And practically, this focuses on problems with self-care, such as personal hygiene, job duties, personal finance, and organization. So pretty much the student is going to struggle with things that other students are able to do on a day-to-day basis by themselves. How I would teach differently is I would definitely plan ahead for these students to make sure I knew how to give them the instruction. I would make sure I'd never overwhelm the student with too much at one time. I'd be exact in what I want from the student, so make sure I'm clear. Learn what they need from me. I think that's an important one because it varies from student to student, and if you don't know your student well enough, then you may not be helping them at all. And also use concrete items and examples to explain new concepts. The next one is autism, and I just kind of explain this as behavioral issues, problems with social interaction, and communication issues. So they kind of just don't have the understanding of nonverbal communication, like a facial expression, a gesture, an eye gaze. They have lack of seeking to share enjoyment and interest in activities with other people, and they have difficulties with social and emotional responses. Some people with autism, and again it varies from person to person, but they may have a delayed language development, they have difficulty initiating and sustaining conversations, and they may have repetitive use of language such as repeating phrases. How I would teach these students differently would be keep my language simple so that way I know they understand, give fewer choices and be very clear with them, use visual references, and be gentle in criticism. The next one is traumatic brain injury, and this is a difficult one because traumatic brain injury can affect many different things, so it's not gonna be the same with different people. Just the different things that I put down, maybe cognitive issues, language, memory, attention, reasoning, abstract thinking. They may have judgment issues, problem solving, sensory, motor abilities, psychological behavior, physical functions, information processing, or speech. These are just kind of some of the characteristics that can be caused by traumatic brain injury. And how I would teach differently is I feel like I would have the student sit near me or closer to me so I can keep an eye on them at all times. If that student needs to tape record me so they can re-listen to it later, I would allow that. Teach in small groups and allow frequent breaks. I would definitely teach differently depending on the traumatic brain injury that they have and what it caused them to change in their mind. So it just kind of depends on the student. The next one is hearing loss. And I explain this by communication difficulties, having selective hearing, and behavioral characteristics. And how I would teach differently is I would address the kid in the classroom. Communication considerations, I could look directly at the kid, use the kid's name, and speak more clearly so that the kid understood me more. The next one that I have is visual impairments, and I have 4 different types of that. And the first one is partially sighted. This is just like a little bit, has a little bit of visual impairment. Low vision is someone's vision between 20/70 and 21/60 and cannot be corrected. So they're just going to have like a bad vision because it can't be corrected. Then I have legally blind, and that's from 20/200 and 20/400. This means that it's very, very close to total blindness. And then I have totally blind. They can't see light. They can't see anything. And how I would teach differently, it also depends on which one they are out of those 4. But I teach specific skills that they need, keep instructions brief, clearly define requirements, and be very flexible with this student. Gifted and talented students. The characteristics that I'm going to describe are a rapid learner. These are just some of them. There's so many. A rapid learner, large vocabulary, excellent memory, enjoys solving problems, and has a longer attention span. Again, there's so many, so I can't name all the characteristics. But how I would teach differently to these students is I would assign independent projects, ask intellectually stimulating questions, and organize cluster groups. So maybe I would not depend on the student more, but know that they can do more, so I would count on them more to know the answers and know what I am teaching. And then the last slide on my PowerPoint, I just kind of put things that I think are super important no matter who you're teaching. I personally feel that teaching a student with a disorder or disability will vary on what the exact student needs. As a teacher with a student with a disability, I think we are responsible for getting to know that student and know what will work for them in the classroom. I also think that the universal design for learning guidelines are very important to use when you do have a student with a disability. And that kind of concludes my presentation. And I hope you learned a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.